Okay guys, so let us now talk about loops. Loops in C are controlled flow statements that automate code repetition. They repeatedly execute a block of code as long as a specified condition remains true. This is essential for tasks like processing data arrays, reading files, or creating menus, eliminating the need to write the same code multiple times. So we have three main types of loops in C, which are the while loop, do while loop, and for loop. Let's start by talking about the while loop. While loops are used to repeat a block of code as long as a condition is true. This is useful for situations where you don't know beforehand how many times the loop will be required to run. Let's see an example in which we will write a program that prints a message a given number of times while a given condition is true, using a while loop. So I will first declare an integer variable named count, and I'm going to set count to 1. Now after this, I will start a while loop that continuously prints a message as long as count is less than or equal to 5. So I will write the keyword while, then I will open a set of parentheses after this, and within the parentheses I will write a condition which I want to check if it's true or false. So the condition I want to check is if count is less than or equal to 5. And I will follow this with a set of braces. Now within my while loop, the braces represent the body of the loop. So within the body, I will print the current value of count first. So I'm simply printing a message that first prints the value of count, then after that it says happy coding. Now I'm going to increment or increase the value of count by 1. I will do that by writing count and then plus plus. So when we write count plus plus, this is same as writing count equals count plus 1, and it means that we are taking whatever the current value of count is, then adding 1 to it. We can also write something like count and then minus minus if you want to subtract 1 from the value of count, but that is not what we are interested in doing now. So this is all about my while loop, and I will now run the program to see what this does. So first of all, we have count that is set to 1, and then after that we are within the while loop, we are printing the value of count, and then we increment it by 1, meaning that we add 1 to the value. This makes that the value of count is going to keep changing. It's first of all 1, then it's going to be 2, then 3, then 4, and then 5. So it means this our message is going to be printed 5 times because the condition of our while loop says we should print it so long as count is less than or equal to 5. Now let's run the program to see the result. Now we see the result is displayed, but we cannot really count easily because they are all on one line. So I will try adding a \n at the end of my message to make it more readable. Okay, now we can see count is printed 5 times and happy coding 5 times also. Now that is how to use while loops in C. We simply specify our condition, or we start by writing the while keyword, then we write a condition within parentheses, and then within braces we write the code we want to be executed repeatedly as long as the condition is true. So this is different from an if statement, because with if statements we are checking a condition and then we execute the body of the if statement if the condition is true only, and we execute it just once. But with a loop, we check if the condition is true and we execute it multiple times so long as that condition keeps being true. Now let's talk about a do while loop. A do while loop is similar to a while loop, but it guarantees that the code block will execute at least once. This is particularly useful when you want the loop to run at least one time. Now let's see with our while loop example. If we started with our count variable being 10 and we run the program, we see that nothing is printed and our message is not displayed even once, because from the very onset our condition counts less than or equal to 5 is never true, because count begins at 10 in the first place. But with a do while loop, we can make in such a way that the body of our loop is printed or executed at least one time before we start checking the condition the subsequent times. So in order to do that, we already have our while loop. We are simply going to modify this. So instead of starting with a while keyword, I will start with a do keyword to represent a do while loop. So I will say do, and then I will remove this condition also. So I will simply say do, open my braces, and within the braces I will write the body of my loop. I want to display or print count and happy coding, and then after that I increment the value of count as we had in our while loop seal, and then it is only after the end of the body of this do while loop that I will write my condition. So I will say the condition will be while count is less than or equal to 5. So that is why we call it a do while loop. We first do something in the body of the loop, and then after that we check the condition to see if we should continue executing the body of this loop. Now let's run the program to see the result. So now we see count 10 and happy coding, and it is displayed just one time, because after we successfully executed the body of this loop and we check the condition to see if we should continue executing this block of code, we saw that the condition wasn't true, and that is why we stopped executing this block of code. Now let's change the value of count back to 1, and if we run the program, we see that our message is displayed 5 times now, because the body of the loop is executed 5 times also. So that is how to use do while loops in C. And now the last type of loops we are going to see is the for loop. A for loop is a loop which repeats code a specified or specific number of times. It is ideal when you know in advance how many times exactly we want to execute a statement. So let's see how to write this our same example using a for loop. I already have my int count equal to 1. Now I'm going to simply cancel all of this body of this loop. And to write a for loop, I will start by writing the keyword for, and then I will open my parentheses. Now within the parentheses we have the remaining parts for this loop. The first part, as I said, is the initialization. Here we have our variable count, or here I'm going to change it to I because it is usually more common to see in for loops, but you could still maintain count if you want. So I will have for I will write I equals 1, meaning that I am telling my compiler that I is starting at 1 exactly. Even if I was already initialized to something else here, like 4 for example, we are going to tell it that in our loop we want it to start at 1. And then I will say the next part is the condition. So here I am writing the condition which I want to test or check. The condition here is going to be I less than or equal to 5, and then I follow this with a semicolon, and then after the last part is the incrementation. I will write I plus plus, meaning that after each execution of the body of this loop I want to increment the value of I for the next execution or for the next iteration. And finally I will write a set of braces to mark the body of the loop or the block of code that will be executed in case the condition I less than or equal to 5 is true. So within the body of this loop I will simply print the same message we had last time. I will print count, then I will say happy coding. But here we change the name of the variable count to I, so I should remember to rather write I here instead of count, and I will put my semicolon at the end. And then now we don't need to go below and say something like I plus plus again, because with the for loop, remember that we already do the incrementation at the top of the loop here, so take note of that. And at this point we can simply run the loop and it is going to execute successfully. Now we see we have the same result, count 1 happy coding up to count 5 happy coding. Now with the for loop, you can also decide to declare and initialize your variable I only within the for loop here. Like for example, I can say int I equals 1, and for that reason I will not need to declare I at the top of the program here again. So I can simply start by declaring everything only within my loop. And note that when you declare your variable for use for iteration within the loop, you cannot access this variable somewhere else in the program again unless you had already declared it at the top before using it inside your for loop. So let's run the program and it's still going to work the same. Perfect. Okay guys, so that was how to use while loops, do while loops and for loops in C.